When you've been selling as long as I have, which is 40 years, there are occasions, 3 or 4 that I can remember, where I've given my pitch and the client has gone, okay, let's get going, right? And signed the contract there and then, and off we get, right? But the other 100,000 sales I've made, never made the decision when I was in the room, right? They needed to talk without me there. They needed to see the competitors. They were running a process, like whatever it was. Like, they hardly ever make a decision when I'm in the room. They're making it an hour later, a day later, a week later, a month later. They're not making it there. So if I'm not in the room, when they make the decision, how much of that decision is based on what I said in the presentation? And the answer is none of it. It is all based on what they remember of what I said in the presentation. Now, there's other videos on my website that will explain how people remember things that didn't happen and remember things that aren't true, which is a whole nother problem. This one is about, well, how much do you actually remember of a conversation that you have today, an hour later, a day later, a week later, a month later? Helpful for us, there was some research done in 1885 by a German psychologist called Ebbinghaus. And he learned a whole series of nonsense syllables, tested his recall, and then painstakingly over 2 years plotted how quickly he forgot information. And it's called the curve of forgetting. And it is the single most depressing piece of psychological research if you're in sales, right? Because we'd all like to believe that 100% of what I say to a client about the reasons why the client should buy off me, he remembers, right? But in actual fact, it's nothing like 100%. Like, within less than an hour, it's dropped to, they've forgotten 75%, they only remember 25%. Over the next week, which is around here, it drops by another 75%, and over the next month, another 75%. So here, you're down to 25, you're down to maybe 5, you're down to maybe 2 or 3%. If they are making their decision 30 days after you sat in front of them, they remember 1% of the reasons you gave them for buying off you. 1%, right? And they also remember 1% of your competitors, and something about, like, they remember the repetition. And so you are a commodity here. It's all going to be about price because you weren't in the room when they made the decision. So, top tips. Number 1, get in front of the client as close to the decision making as possible, because if you're in the room, you maximize the chance that they remember the reasons for choosing you. You maximize your chance of getting a deal. If you cannot get a deal whilst you're in the room, then you need to do something here within 1 day when all of this information is going to fall off. You need to do something that's going to spike their recall at 1 day. And so something here has to happen in order to lift that recall up. Again, you want something here, again, about a week later to do the same thing, and ideally you want a third bit about 30 days in, which allows you to bump up their recall. If you do that each time, you're refreshing their information up, you're refreshing their chances of remembering it. We know we can get people to remember 60 to 70% of a conversation a month later if we make sure they remember 100% in the meeting, and then a day, if I click, a week, and a month after, we've built into the communication something that will refresh their memory, an email or a letter or another meeting or another phone call, like something is there at a day, a week, a month, in order to reinforce their memory of what you shared with them in the meeting. If you do that, you maximize your chances of winning a deal because you maximize the chances that they remember the reasons for choosing you.